You are tuned in to a Fireside chat with Zany Mystic. Join us now on another exciting metaphysical journey. Relax, tune in, drop out, and take a seat by the fire as we explore new realms and possibilities. This is Magenta Pixie. You can find me at magentapixie.weebly.com. But now, here is Zany Mystic and guest. Enjoy the show.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a Fireside Chat with Zany Mystic. I am your host, Lance White. Tonight, I'm delighted to welcome Jay Weidner back to the show. Jay is a renowned author, filmmaker, and hermetic scholar. Considered to be a modern-day Indiana Jones for his ongoing worldwide quests to find clues to mankind's spiritual destiny via ancient societies and artifacts, his body of work offers great insight into the circumstances that have led to the current global crisis. He is the producer of the documentary films 2012 The Odyssey, its sequel, Timewave 2013, and many others. We'll be talking about his latest documentary, Infinity, The Ultimate Trip. In this journey beyond death, notables such as Daniel Brinkley, Stanislav Grof, Neil Donald Walsh, and many others discuss the most important questions that face mankind. What happens after we pass from this world? Is there a life after this one? And what happens to those who have had a NDE or near-death experience? Jay's recent film explores these questions and is part of his ongoing series called Sacred Mysteries Cinema. Be sure to explore Jay's website at www.jayweidner.com or www.sacredmysteriescinema.com to discover more. In the meantime, we've got the real Jay, so let's get him on the show now. Hi, Jay. How are you?
Hey, I'm great, Lance. How are you?
Good. Well, I just love your film. It's just a wonderful piece of work, and I'm always amazed at how you just create such a magnificent body of work. So I just want to thank you for making this film.
Oh, well, you're welcome. It was probably one of the harder films I've ever made. It took almost 3 years to make it, and if it hadn't been for divine intervention, I don't think it would have been as good as it is.
Did you have any idea where the film would go before you made it, or did it evolve as obviously it did, and maybe there were some clear moments of divine intervention that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I mean, what happened was it started actually in 2002 when my mom died, and I couldn't really tell her. I thought I was going to be able to tell her about death and hyperdimensional physics, and you don't really die, and your body's going to fold up into a two-dimensional shell and go back up into the higher realms, and I had it all figured out, but when I told her, she looked at me like I was completely out of my mind, which is not an unusual thing for my mom to have done to me. And so and because she was the Irish Catholic, she was filled with the kind of fear that they instill with their teachings, and so she went to her death, to her dying day, terrified of everything, and it was awful. It was just awful. And I was talking to Alberto Violdo over dinner one night, telling him about how helpless I felt, and he told me a similar story about his father dying and how helpless he felt. And I said, well, we should try to do something. And then he said, well, let's make a film that will teach people not to be afraid about death. And I thought, yeah, that's a great idea. And so we just picked some people to interview. Daniel Brinkley was the first one, and then, slowly different people came in. And about a year before the film was released, I edited a version of it, and it was the most boring, clinical, terrible film I'd ever seen. And I was like, oh my God, this is awful. Nobody will watch this. And I didn't really know what to do, and I was actually kind of went into a mini depression because I really didn't want to release it. And then my friend Rick Levine came to visit us, and we were out to dinner again, and he started telling us about this lady that he met up in Seattle, this old lady who had these incredible stories about the Holocaust and all this. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, she's incredible. So he gave me her name, and I contacted her. Her name was Renata Dollinger, and I drove up to Seattle and interviewed her, and she was absolutely just jaw-droppingly great.
Oh, yeah.
The most lucid 88-year-old woman I'd ever known.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, my God, that was a good interview. That helped.
Oh, yeah.
And then I got back, and Neil Donald Walsh had found out that we were making this film, and he kind of insisted that he wanted to be in it. And no one had ever really insisted, like that. So I said, okay, he's a big shot. I'll go interview him. Maybe he's got something to say. Yeah. And he was pretty good. And then I realized that I had to change it from a clinical view of death and use stories to tell the narrative of the film, using Neil and Renata's stories, and then I went out and reshot a bunch of other people who were telling stories, like Alberto. Reshot him and had him tell us his story of his near-death experience. And then the movie began to take shape and became more of a story and less of a kind of a clinical observation of life and death and all that. And that's what saved it. And so, I don't know if it was divine intervention, but it was certainly synchronistic intervention. And so, the movie just won Best Film at the Cover Awards, which is the industry, New Age kind of industry awards, and we'll probably win a few more awards, and it's gotten nothing but good reviews, and I'm just really happy. And I knew it might succeed because when I finished my first edit, Sharon's mom, my wife's mom, came to visit, and she was, in her 80s, not really much of a believer in anything. And I said, would you watch this film and tell me what you think? And she watched it, and she was in tears and said it was a great film, and she actually wasn't afraid of death anymore. And so that made me feel really good. And that was what I was trying to do. I have a subversive intention also in making the film, in that I know the powers that be are using fear, and mostly the fear of death, to get what they want. And so I thought maybe if I could convince people that there was nothing to be afraid of, that they would be more willing to stand up to the powers that be and say, listen, we're done with your crap. And maybe that'll happen, maybe it won't, but it was a last shot in the dark to try to convince people that there's really nothing to be afraid of, and that if we stand up for ourselves against people who are telling us to do things we don't like and we think are wrong, even if they kill us, we're not really going to die. And I think, so there was a revolutionary intent also, I guess.
Well, I got that, and I'm in complete alignment with that intention, being somewhat similar in my processes, whatever those are. Yeah. So, yes, I can totally accord with that one. And one of the other interesting ideas that is kind of subversive is that there is no getting out of death. I think it was Alberto that talks about that. Yeah. And our actions have consequences. That there were so many gems in there. And Renato, my God, she would be worth it just to watch her by herself. She was so charming and delightful, and I mean, I can't say enough good things about this film.
Yeah, well, thank you. And one of my favorite lines is Robert Thurman says near the end of the film that he twists Jim Morrison's famous line back on itself and says, "No one gets out of here dead," which I love. It just cracked me up. Yeah. And it's true. Yeah. If you think that you're going to get out of here doing a lot of really terrible things to people, and you're just going to die, and it's going to be over, you're in for a very serious lesson when you take your last breath.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things that you know, people in the religion seem to be focusing on is that they're just going to be lifted up or in some kind of rapture, and all the rest of us, the unchosen people, of course, that's anybody who doesn't believe what they believe, are just going to go in hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
So, you know, your film clearly pokes some major holes in those sacred cows.
Oh, it does. And, you know, one of my favorite things, one of the things that I discovered doing the film, which I thought was just really cool, is the past life review. And, you know, this kind of going backwards through your life.
Oh, yeah.
And looking at what you've done. And Daniel, he brings up this whole idea that you don't not only go back and live your life, which has to be rather embarrassing for most people, especially when you're young and all the stupid things that people do when they're young. But his whole idea that you actually live the lives of the people that you affected, whether you hurt them or you help them.
Yep.
And you know, so you can imagine hurting someone seriously, you know, intentionally, and then having to live through their horror and pain that you caused. But there's a flip side, of course, is that you're helping a lot of people also. And that, you know, so you don't know who you're helping either in life, and how many times you gave encouragement or helped someone out, and so there's that aspect too. And according to him, it's the biggest surprise is how many people you find out in your past life review, how many people you helped unknowingly in your life. And I thought that was pretty cool. And so now I kind of go out of my way to help people even more than I ever did, because I'm trying to construct the best past life review I can have with the meager amount of time I've got left. So it just pays to be just a little bit nicer to people, to thank people a little more sincerely, to help people out maybe, and you know, if you're not going to do it because it's the right thing to do, then do it because it will help you have a much more enjoyable life review after you die. And if that's your reason, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, me too. Daniel's really a cool guy. I had him on the show a couple of years ago, and you know, I was into my near-death experience kick, and I had a few others that, you know, were pretty known. But I like what he says because it's so, he's like every man, you know.
He is.
He really just is the nitty-gritty. He tells it like it is. He is so down to earth. And he calls that the panoramic life review because it's, you know, you could probably elaborate on this better than I can, but it's seeing it from your own personal viewpoint and from the viewpoint of those who are experiencing the result of your actions. And then there's an omniscient view, which is not necessarily a godly view, but it's just a view from overall. So you're actually seeing this from three different perspectives simultaneously. And all the people that I've talked to or studied or read about all say the same thing, that there is this life review. So this is a really important tool that we can use and be aware of to help make course corrections, as you said, before we get to the point where it's too late.
Well, you know, and it's always too late if you think about it, because you don't know when you're going to die. So, you know, so you might as well start now. I mean, don't wait. Don't say, well, next week I'm going to try to be better. You know, that's not going to cut it, you know. In fact, you may be tempting the universe to get rid of you now.
That's right. That's right.
So, you know, just go and do it. And if you do it, you know, you're going to be really surprised, because there is a kind of a strange immediate gratification in it, and even if you're doing it just to have a better life review, it's still the right thing to do. And that's another thing that we all need to do, is realize that we're all equal when we die. You know, the poor, the rich, the elites, everybody's equal when they die. So no matter what kind of injustices are going on in this world, and there's plenty of them, you know, in the end, there is a kind of a creative justice, and it's meted out. And